When I think about innovation, I think about all the scientists or engineers through history and how they really expanded their field or solved that key problem that catapulted them to be a historical figure. They did something different. They did something outside of the norm for them. So we're trying to do things outside of the norm, outside of that standard solution. And to do that, you need to bring different perspectives to the table.
I know, from personal experience going through a technical degree, we being people of color, were a minority. When you don't see people that you can relate to, when there aren't role models, it makes you think, oh, why aren't there role models? Almost to the point of, maybe I've made the wrong decision to be in this discipline.
It's important because in STEM, first of all, the numbers indicate there just is not diversity around the spectrum, whether you're speaking about gender, race, ethnicity, even age to some extent. If we want students to succeed, they need to see mirrored in the faculty people who look and think and have cultural backgrounds similar to their own.
I, as a person, don't realize that I'm a role model in some ways. I'm just being, Jennifer Zernheld, faculty member. And when a student stops you and says, I'm so pleased to see a female faculty member, it makes me stop and think, we need to change this situation. We need to make it so that it is normal. It can be a logical path for anybody.
In terms of recruiting diverse faculty, one of the important pieces for me is to go where they are. So for us, when looking at faculty, it is going to those professional women's societies, going to the STEM summits. I believe the same holds true since most of the organizations have the Society of Hispanic Engineers or the National Society of Black Engineers. We need to be going to those professional societies and organizations and welcoming them.
And once you understand that things can be different, it's much easier to see outside the box and understand much better a non-traditional path, understand choices, or maybe even begin to have an idea of why people make certain choices. Understanding that just because I didn't go to Harvard doesn't mean that, or Stanford, that I am not technically competent, that I can still hold my own. I just didn't go to those schools.
Implicit bias are the attitudes and stereotypes that we all have that influence our decisions, our actions, and reactions in ways that we are not fully conscious of.
From a personal point of view, I came to the U.S. as an immigrant from India. So when I was interviewing at, say, at UB for a faculty position, and during my stay here, there has been, I would say, there's definitely some type of implicit bias. I felt that as an immigrant, you were somewhat held to a higher standard as opposed to colleagues in my department, who were from the U.S. And I don't think it's exactly the same as what a woman and minority candidate would feel, but I think there are parallels. Having a consistent criteria in hiring and also in tenure and promotion for all people is important because that helps eliminate this type of implicit bias.
We also have to be aware of implicit bias as it affects letters of recommendation that are written for different candidates. Studies have shown that letters written for male candidates tend to be longer than letters written for female candidates. So being aware of the differences in the lengths of letters for male and female candidates can allow us to combat this notion that one letter is very strong and another letter is very weak purely because of the length of the letter.
So one thing our department tried was to broaden the advertisement, so not restrict it to a particular subfield in industrial engineering. So in industrial engineering, we have three subfields: the human factors, operations research, and production systems. So the advertisement essentially said that we would consider a candidate in any of those subfields as opposed to a particular subfield. That helped in our last search that we did very significantly in that we actually had 5 out of the 7 candidates that were interviewed were women or minority.
In the STEM fields, we believe we can become Spock-like in that we shed all of our emotions and just look at the raw data and the numbers to come to a decision rationally and thoughtfully. As part of this, then we assign numbers to all of these different categories, whether it's number of papers or grants received, students graduated, citation indices of journals. By doing this, we can then find the top person, the best person, who ranks above all other people. And then maybe we have a second, and then maybe a third, and then everybody else. However, the very process of limiting the categories that we assign these numbers to indicates an implicit bias.
A holistic way of looking at a candidate is to think of all the contributions that they made. So they have published papers in referee journals, maybe they've given posters at conferences, but then maybe they've done other things. Perhaps they have been in student clubs, which was STEM-oriented. Perhaps they've participated in encouraging other students to join the STEM field. Perhaps they have done some type of entrepreneurial activity.
As the faculty body becomes more diverse, we end up with more voices in the room that offer different perspectives on what it means to be hired and what kind of criteria we're looking for when we're hiring more people. So that diversity brings more diversity, and this just makes the whole department better.
By cultural competence, we really mean faculty who are able to teach, work with, interact with, and not only listen to, but really hear students from a broad range of backgrounds. So this is less about hiring someone with from an underrepresented category or identity. This is really more about being able to hire people, faculty, who have intercultural communication skills. All of our students bring their own worldview, and I think it's our responsibility as faculty to really understand, for as many students as we can, what has shaped each student's worldview, and to really understand that they're all learning in an individual way with individual biases and with individual assumptions. And so we really want to understand if our faculty candidates understand that about themselves and if they've implemented that in any way. So integrating cultural competency into the search process is a new dynamic, and we're trying some things to figure out how to best do this, what are the best practices in this. And for us, right now, we're asking our faculty candidates to answer a question about their own experiences with cultural competency and some experiences that they've had either in their research background or their teaching experiences where they've had to really deal with some cultural competency issues with their either peers or their students that they're interacting with. Can they bring a level of understanding and compassion and respect to the classrooms that they're going to administer and the research labs that they're going to superintend?
I will tell people I have the best job in the world. I can pretty much research what I want. I can pretty much teach what I want. My job is my mind. I'm thinking all the time. So should I devote every waking moment, and even some sleeping moments because I'm trying to think about solutions to problems, should I devote every moment of my life to solving those problems? It is important to not have this idealized notion that the faculty member must work 100 hours a week and they must be male and they must do this. No. If a male colleague watches his children for the day, people will say, oh, isn't he a great dad? You know, he's doing this important faculty work and he's also watching his children. Well, he's not the babysitter, he's their parent. It needs to be a 50-50 investment. So, yeah, I think there are different expectations for a female faculty from a male faculty. And just reorientating what's normal is a great discussion we need to have. Can you look at people as where they are in their career, where their story is, and see if they're going to be a good fit? But then as a department, when we bring them here, we also need to put our best foot forward. We need to show them that UB values a work-life balance. They provide mentoring to you as you're going through your path. And those things make a big difference.